Oh no, what have I done? There's wires everywhere. Alright, just joking. Everyone gets all freaked out when there's a bunch of wires laying around. So you'd never think that a big pile of wires is something that you would really want to save, but it's come in useful more than once. So unlike garbage GM stuff, you can't just buy this at Napa, right? So all these Toyota plug-ins, they're not like off the shelf. They're kind of a pain in the ass to find. So I just kept these. Like, I tried to like deal with some people back in the day and no one would ever call you back. And so if you can find these plugs from the dealer, they're, you know, like $14 a piece, and the wiring pins are like $3 or $5 a piece. So I just have been sitting on these, and I use factory wires and factory plugs to do like installs or conversions, and it keeps everything nice and clean and not completely like hacked and molested when you go back in there. So anyway, basically what I'm doing here is, I don't know if we talked about this or not yet. Probably not. Maybe so, maybe not. Decided to get a header set up for the truck because oh yeah, the cast manifolds suck. That's why. So cast manifolds suck. My favorite header was the Downey off-road stuff. It's old and it's not around anymore. So basically LC Engineering is the only place where you can get a quality part. And kind of, I don't know if it's a downside necessarily, it's just kind of like another hurdle you're dealing with. Instead of having the oxygen sensor right here in the manifold, because this is your oxygen sensor plug right here, right? So this plugs in and it plugs directly into the manifold, like right in the collector area right here. What would be the manifold collector area. I don't know if that was problematic. It was probably just a money thing more than anything else, that they decided to go to 4 sensor wires and all that stuff. So on the later model truck starting in '88, the 4 sensor wire is down in front of the catalytic converter. The plug goes through the floorboard and it just goes right there. So LC made this header that way, to just put it down there and to use a 4 wire. So the problem with using a single wire sensor in that spot is, you saw where this one plugs in, so you're basically adding like a couple feet of wire to run down to that sensor, which really isn't necessarily a big idea or that bad of an idea, except for single wire sensor is going to probably take longer. It's going to definitely take longer to heat up back there. What I'm going to do is, instead of doing that, I'm just going to add a 4 wire sensor, and the difference being is, like, even with a 1 wire, you just have a time. Basically with a heated sensor, you're in closed loop like right now. With the other style sensor, it's got to temp up and you got to wait around, and so it's emissions. You wasted like a cup of gas while you're waiting for that thing to heat up. Anyway, that's all that we're doing here. I have a sensor that I can use, and then this is just a carcass 3 liter engine harness. So like when you're doing the 3/4 swap or whatever, a lot of times the engine harness will be cannibalized for the engine harness to body harness plugs. You just cut those out and you go back and scavenge the rest of this stuff. So for the sake of the header, I'm going to scavenge this plug, and then get the header installed today. And I think basically that's what's going to go on. I'm going to try to get the header installed and get this wiring in there and dealt with and ready to do headering and oxygen sensoring type stuff. Okay, so in the continuing adventures of this build, I wanted to check these injectors and see if I could clean them. We used to have a shop around here that did like in-house, or they had a shop off-site that cleaned them. Those guys are no longer around, so kind of for the sake of time, what I decided to do is build a tool. So this is pretty straightforward. This is a piece of 3/8 fuel injection hose, simply clamped onto the end of the injector. And then basically all I ended up doing is filling the hose up with some sort of cleaner. This is just simply a regulated air pressure down to 40 pounds. Stick it into the end of the hose, I pressurize it, and then I just hook the injector up to the battery with a little pigtail, and just toggle it, tap, 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 tap. Comes out clean. So I'll show you that here real quick. Now I went through the other ones last night, just kind of make sure that this worked. And I'm kind of out of fluid too, so there's that. So pretty straightforward. Fill up your hose. All right, that's pretty full. You take this guy, plug it in the end, clamp it. Problem I had with a couple of the other nozzles I had is that they were like leaking and not holding pressure in the line. They're back leaking through themselves, so make sure that you've got something that won't back bleed and it will hold pressure in the line. Or you could just hook the line up directly to this as long as it's regulated. That's really the big thing with this. Fuel injector is just a solenoid. It doesn't really matter which way it gets hooked up here. What am I looking for? This nozzle's not super happy after yesterday, I guess. Alright, check this out here real quick. So basically that's just a quick little tool. You want to make sure that, you know, these are what's called duty cycle driven, so they're not on full time. Don't just hang it out there and leave it on. You want to cycle it. It's a coil, it can overheat. But that's basically your simple $0 fuel injector cleaner. Feel free to run as much fuel in there as you wanted. Basically, I just wanted to make sure that these weren't sticking and they didn't have like a real little spray pattern on there or anything. That's kind of what you're looking for. You just want to make sure that the fuel is atomizing as it gets injected. So you want to just make sure you have a nice fan as that's going in there. And yeah, that's it. There's a little simple fuel injector cleaner for you. New injector insulators from Toyota. So these injectors are 3 pieces. There's an O-ring and there's 2 separate insulators. Yes, I know it's stupid, but it's what it is. So if you don't have 3 pieces, it's not going to work right. So without you looking, I went ahead and installed the fuel rail. Fuel line's hooked up. Working on the IAC stuff right here. I think what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and get the engine harness kind of strung in there and see if it's going to actually fit. I think this harness was good, but this one ended up being like a turbo harness or something stupid, so it's a little bit different. And you know, again, with this turbo thing, I'm not really sure why they didn't just use all the same shit again, but they didn't. So thank you, engineers, every time. Yeah. With that being said, I'm going to start getting the engine harness in. Basically started turning into this engine harness. I should have done this a long ass time ago, but kind of what we got going on is, of course, this is old. I got some broken connectors on here, so I was going to go ahead and get them swapped out. So one of the main ones is your throttle position sensor. This is all broken off, so there's no way to like snap it on there. Like this guy, and although that one isn't perfect, it's better. These terminals, you can see they pin out of there. If, for example, I assume these kind of came out of the front of that deal, because I know some of these early ones, they come out of the front of the pin. It makes them kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. Like, you can't do it without splicing the wire if you got a broken connector or something. So anyway, I played with that. I couldn't figure out how to dig it out of there. But what you can do is, and most of this stuff is available online. I've had this book for like 20 years almost now. But anyway, Toyota makes this book, Wiring Harness Repair. And so it basically shows you all the connectors and the pins and kind of how these things come apart. So real quick, I'll show you what's going on. Since I kind of know what that pin is, you can go into this section here. Female 4 non-pin, non-waterproof type. And even though that's got the rubber, it's technically not a waterproof connection, right? So anyway, we go in here, we find this guy right here. That part number is your connection. So we take that part, that 10378, we can go back to the back of this book, your housing parts list. So if we go to 10378 is right there. This means that particular deal is no longer available. This MIC is what type of pin it is. It's a female, there's 4. And it's unsealed is what's going on there. Okay, this is the repair of the splice number that you're going to get, 12120 right there. We go back to this section of the book and we find that 8298 12120. So that would be your replacement pin, okay? So that's called the mic. Since I don't really know how those come apart, what we do is we can go into the front of this section here, and this will show me the mic. All right, micro, I assume. So when I was digging this out of the pin before, I was thinking it had a, like this says, it's got a housing tang where the plastic piece actually engages the terminal and holds it into the housing. This one isn't like this. This one, the terminal itself is engaging the housing. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get in there and push that little tang down and get that to slide out of there. That's a quick little bit of knowledge on there if you guys want to get it. If you aren't familiar with Toyota's, it's called the TIS program. It's basically like where the technicians do training. It's how all the techs access the factory service manuals now. It's all computer online. Just search TIS. You go in there, you pay a couple dollars, and you can either get the service manual, the electronic wiring manual that you want, or various other things. I'm not sure this manual is available on there. It probably is. You might have to dig for it though, because I have found those online before. If you want, DM me and I can send you an online version of that. I do have some harness work that I'm gonna have to deal with. I'm not really going to show you that because it's pretty boring. I'm just going to be swapping those ends. The other thing that ends up being, and I don't understand why Toyota did this, I guess an automatic has more pins or whatever. Okay, so this is the engine harness that came out of this truck. I ended up getting it back, but my buddy had cut it already, so it's worthless. But anyway, for some reason, Toyota likes to use this pin set on the automatics. All the manuals will use this pin set. So yeah, I assume that has to do with the training wiring and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to dig through and see what's what, but I need to go swap this plug in the truck or dig the other one up. Anyway, you can see that that's going to be really annoying and stupid, so I'm going to do that and I'm going to save you that nonsense or whatever. I may have that other plug in that pile of wires right there, so we'll get this going. I should have dealt with this a while ago, but such is life, I guess. With the header and this head, I didn't actually have any exhaust nuts, so what I decided to do when I bought the header, just kind of for the sake of cost, was to buy a new head, exhaust manifold stud and nut set. So in doing that, I'm just taking the nuts back out of this, and there's a couple ways that you can do it. You know, if you need to basically pull a stud and you need to reuse it or reinstall it, the easiest way to do it, old school way, is what's called a double nut. What you do is you basically just stack the two nuts onto the stud. Stack them on, then you just lock them together by tightening them up together on the stud. So what that does is those two nuts locked together essentially creates a bolt head, and then you can just back the stud out. Okay, so we're just going to keep backing these guys out. I didn't show you the other ones. I'll show you this last one here real quick. And the other option you have doing this is you could obviously just vice grip these if you weren't planning on or didn't need to reuse them. And they also just have a tool that is like an easy out, and it grabs on the end of the tool and will, or grabs on the end of the stud and we'll pull it out. Just get them out, just loosen it back up. Feels a little bit harder than I like, so run it back in there, some lube down in the hole. And then just like that, they just come out. So what I really didn't show you here is I just went through and I chased the holes and made sure that they were going to take new hardware. Sometimes when you pull this old hardware out of there, I notice there's a little bit of carbon and some rust and stuff like that. It can get rolled up and damage the threads. That's why you saw me, you don't want to force them out. If you feel you're getting rough, turn it back in, try to get some lube on there and just work it out. It'll keep you from tearing the threads out. So that being said, what you want to do anytime you're running dissimilar metals, you want to use some sort of an anti-seize product on the threads. That way they won't grow corrosion. So basically that's what we're going to do. I ran these all in there, and I don't think I'm going to have to double nut them in because they were all taken, the head was taking the hardware pretty good. So for you just want to put a little bit of anti-seize in here, get some on the thread there good, and then just turn them in. So like I said, I didn't run the tap all the way into these heads. I just cleaned up a little bit of thread that I could feel. I didn't want to load the hardware right. So that's pretty much all that was going on with that. Make sure you use high quality tap and die sets. Some of the cheaper ones aren't really the legit size, and they things up. So we'll go ahead and get this hardware loaded, and then we can get the header put in here. One thing I was able to do back in the day, running the other header, some of the aftermarket headers, they want you to use like a cheesy generic, you know, just a paper gasket or whatever. Even if your header doesn't necessarily fit with the stock heat shield here, it's pretty easy to get in here and grind the rivets out and get the heat shield out of the way to make it lay down with your header or whatever. And then you can have a nice high quality like multi-layer gasket in there instead of a cheesy one. The other thing that works good on these, or the little bit lesser gaskets, is like the copper tone. I just call it copper tone, but it's like the copper high temp RVT stuff. I was actually kind of on the fence about using that on this one, but I think we'll give it a go without. Should be a nice machine fit. Should just go right in. So now what I'm going to do is just put these studs back in. Install just basically the reverse of the removal. Just double nut these. Push them down to appropriate torque spec, which is tight. Looks like underneath the car. It looks like this heat shield isn't really going to fit unless I tweak it. I don't really want to deal with that. And just like that. So grab that other headpiece and see where it fits. But you can see what I'm saying. That oxygen sensor was way up there, and now it's going to live about like right here, up in this hole. So let me grab that other piece for mock-up here real quick. So here is what I'm thinking. This header comes down here. You can see pretty far down behind the shackle, and then this is where our head pipe bolts up. So this is what it looks like from behind the cross member. See, this is like, this gap right here is pretty tight. And I think what's going to happen here is, you can see this head pipe's got a little bit of a jog in it where it goes up, but it's like set way back.
So I think what's going to go on is, rather than push it in right here, because that doesn't, or really close to the pipe, it's not really allowing us anything from the cross member. But I think if I cut this pipe back like this, or like in that vicinity, then I get to jog immediately to clear the cross member. And I only lose a little bit of pipe there. I think that's going to be the best plan for what I've got going on here. So let's get to cutting. Can I just cut it short here? Yeah, see you.
All right, kids, so the rest of the exhaust stuff showed up today. I just came up short on a couple of bends. I wanted to keep all this stuff kind of clean. I went mandrel bends on all this stuff. I didn't go crazy and do stainless, but the MagnaFlow is stainless, I'm sure. So I'll give you a quick look at what we got going on here already. So obviously the LC header, and then you come underneath here to the head pipe. This is where the 4-wire sensor will go. I went ahead and shortened up the head pipe a little bit to get stuff to fit where it goes. So the cap, stock cap, mates up to the stock hanger here. And then this is all 2.5 inch, or excuse me, this is all 2 1/4 pipe. Just mandrel bends, 18-inch MagnaFlow. So we come under the back here, and we have the tailpipe. So I wanted to be able to clear the stock carrier in case someone wants to actually use it. So we kind of clock this up out of the way, tuck it over here by the frame rail, and I'm not really 100% what I'm going to do with the exit yet. Frankly, the exit on these sucks no matter what. I don't know. So I'm going to chew on the tailpipe for a day or two, I think. I'm going to definitely try to, I want to be able to capture it with a stock hanger somehow, whether it be right here or push back a little bit. And I'm still undecided on whether or not I'm going to delete these. Obviously the other vehicle doesn't have these because of the way that it's built. Honestly, I just think these bumperettes and the rear bumpers on these were garbage from the go. And considering it's more of an aesthetic thing than anything else, I don't know. I'm like I said, way leaning towards getting rid of them because they suck. And I could probably sell them to like some idiot California for a shitload of money. So if you want to buy these, they're like $500 for the pair. Okay, hit me up. You can leave your comment below, but I'm probably going to make the decision by the time you see this video. So anyway, that's what the exhaust looks like. Way too much time wrapped up in it, but I'm happy the way that it turned out. I really like the way that the mandrel bends turn out a lot better. You kind of are, I don't know, you have a lot more leeway and adjustment to get everything clocked just right and get the bends exactly where they need to be. Whereas if you're out on when you're out getting your exhaust bent on the tubing bender machine, not only does it look like shit, it also is smashing the tube as it bends it. So those radiuses, you're not getting full flow. And yeah, I've got like 85 horsepower, but you know, whatever. Like I said, I personally think that the header and reel exhaust is the best bang for the buck on a stock 22RE or a stock 22R period. Just because the management sucks and all that other stuff, but I know from experience the header and exhaust will wake these up big time. And so yeah, that's what we went for with this guy. Yeah, I'm stoked about that. So I guess I'm gonna figure out that tailpipe. Ultimately, it would be nice to be able to bring it out and tuck it like way up here. As you can see, this is kind of about where it was gonna go. I don't know. I'm a little up in the air, but otherwise the exhaust is done other than wiring and putting the O2 sensor in there. So one more thing off the list. Probably asking yourself, what the hell is that? What that is I'm just checking for leaks in this exhaust. tailpipe piece. Got ahead, I went and got this welded up, and I wasn't super happy with the welds, and so I just was grinding them out. I'm gonna make them look all nice, and then I was just checking for pinholes. So put air to it, dragged the welder over to start doing some repair work, and I apparently ran out of gas yesterday. So it always just seems like I wish I could run out on a Tuesday instead of a Saturday or a Sunday, which seems to be the norm around here. So with that, I went ahead and shifted gears again and figured since I'm rolling around on the concrete anyway, I may as well finish up one of these other projects that's been kind of nagging, and it goes along with this as well. So what I did this afternoon is I had already pulled, I don't know if we talked about it, but anyway, I pulled that 4-wire harness out of the engine harness so I can wire it up in this guy, and I went ahead and got that wired up today. So this is pretty straightforward what goes on. I know we talked about the 4-wire before, so it's placed back here. On the 88 and later trucks, and maybe some earlier Cali trucks, it's underneath the body right here. Okay, and it goes like that, and just like in stock fashion, I'm just going to bring it up to the floor right here. Okay, this is where it's plugging into the actual body harness now. This will be your O2 plug. So what I did is I just ganged into the power that I pulled for the locker out of the defogger fuse that's not being used. And basically what goes on there is you've got the key on power to the heater, you've got a heater ground, you've got like a sensor redundant ground, you've got the sensor wire, and then you've got the sensor shielding wire. Okay, so out here, this is the original plug-in where the sensor would have plugged in, and this is the sensor wire running out of that pigtail plugging into here, and this is the shielding ground. So the shielding is basically, you've got this black wire, then you've got the shielding wrapped around it, and then it's all covered with this other sheet. So if you ever have to repair one of these wires, a sensor wire like that, just make sure that you are paying attention and get that sheathing out of the way, because what will happen is if that sheathing gets caught up in the signal wire, what goes on is it will be sending the computer a lean signal all the time, and then you'll be running like shit and throwing O2 codes and stuff like that. So anyway, that's basically what I have going on with that. That's going to be wired up. I'm going to have to I need to double check where the oxygen sensor is in the engine harness and where it goes back into the body plug, because I was unable to use the stock engine harness with this guy. So the one that I sourced ended up being a turbo harness, has a few plugs that are a little bit different, and you can see that because this is the turbo harness oxygen sensor lead versus it being over here on the fender. Okay, so yeah, anyway, I don't have the other manifold, but in the 85 the oxygen sensor just is in the deal right here. So that's what went on with that. And so yeah, the exhaust is basically dialed in. Like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup, and I'll show you that exit. I guess I just didn't record anything when I was working on it yesterday. I just took this in and out of the truck a bunch of times, a bunch of fittings, and it just gets to be kind of, I don't know, nobody wants to watch that shit. So what I will do is once I get gas back, I will show you that exhaust and get that all finished up. It turned out good. It's going to be nice and clean, and then I guess that's about it. I'm just kind of on the final push to get this thing rolling. I need to get the rest of the hoses, the heater hoses and the coolant stuff ready to go. And then, I mean, that's more or less it. It's right there. So it is right there. I will catch up when we get more gas and can get that exhaust finished up. But that's a little update for today. So the 4-wire sensor is done. It's ready to rock and roll and do oxygen sensoring type stuff. And it really turned out to be pretty easy. It would be kind of nice, like I mentioned before, if LCE would just kind of send you a hookup, because for somebody who's not me, that might be a little more of a pain in the ass to deal with. And what they end up doing, they just send you a relocation wire kit, and they just give you like a 2-foot piece of wire to extend your wire down there. So the problem with that is running a single wire that far away from the manifold is going to take forever for that sensor to heat up, or maybe never, who knows. So you're just going to get, it's going to be less efficient. You're not going to come up to closed loop as soon as you should. And so, yeah, that's basically why they went to the 4-wire, so you could be in closed loop like right now, and then you're not causing climate change and stuff, right? Nobody actually wants to learn geometry, so I'm not going to talk about radiuses or any of that shit either. But I do, recommend, I think, where am I in this? I'm probably, I think I'm a couple $100 in this in pipe and the muffler. So the muffler is like $120, and then I've got I used 4 mandrels that were, I think, $18 a piece. Okay, so I'm in the pipe and tubing and everything, $200, and my time. So if you have time and a welder, just take the time and do it instead of paying someone and being disappointed with the way it turned out. That's pretty much my advice. Back in the day, the Downey headers, they were smog legal as far as I know. A 50 state smog legal as well, because Downey was out of California, and they were just a little bit shorter header. I thought it tucked in there a little bit better, and I don't know, maybe people like the long tube headers a little bit, I don't know, different strokes for different folks. I think I like the packaging of the other header a little bit better, but times change, and so you have to deal with different shit, and that's where we're at with this. I think I'm basically tired of rolling around on the concrete for the day, so I'm gonna roll it up. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.
That wraps up another episode of Snale Racing.
Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe.